Hello everyone, today I'll be reading Die Wimpy Kid, The Zombie Apocalypse. Monday. Today started off as a normal day. Me and my best friend Rowley were playing Twisted Wizard in my bedroom when a strange newscast interrupted our gameplay. Reports of the dead rising from their graves. Rowley seemed pretty scared, but I was able to convince its fat that it must have been some sort of prank. About 20 minutes go by and me and Rowley both hear some noises coming from downstairs. At first I thought it was Mom or Dad, but they usually wouldn't make so much noise. I then shrugged it off as being Roderick moving some of his band equipment about, but just as I thought that, I started to hear faint groaning noises. Rowley started to cry as he thought it was a spooky ghost. Myself, being more rational, thought it could have been someone who was hurt. So I walked down the stairs, and Rowley was sobbing like a little behind me. As I got nearer to the kitchen where the noise was coming from, I could hear a car pull into the driveway. As I got to the window to see who it was, I saw Roderick in his van. I noticed how scared Roderick looked, which was really surprising me. When I heard Rowley start to scream, as soon as I turned around, I saw someone who had grabbed onto Rowley and was trying to bite him. I completely froze when Roderick burst through the door and sucker punched Rowley's attacker. Roderick managed to knock down the poor bastard, but immediately it started to stand back up. I lifted Rowley off from the floor, and the three of us ran into the kitchen. I slammed the door just as the thing was about to run headfirst into me, grinning its teeth like it was going to bite me. Roderick didn't even give it a second thought before he threw the fridge in front of the door. Immediately I yelled at him for doing something so stupid, but he just said that I should be thanking him for saving my life. "You should be thanking me for I just saved your life." I had to admit he was right. If he hadn't been there, who knows what would have happened to me and Rowley. I then pulled out my phone and tried to phone for the police. However, the calls kept cutting out, saying that an operator was unavailable to take my call. This was bullshit. I turned to Roderick and asked what was going on. He told me that the zombie apocalypse had just happened and that the dead are walking in the streets. First I didn't believe him until I remembered what attacked Rowley. It then all made sense. Roderick said that the first thing we should do is secure the house and kill the zombie in our hallway. I told Roderick that was a really good idea, but I had no idea how we were going to kill the zombie. Roderick suggested we find Dad's pistol, while Rowley said that we should just ask it nicely to leave. Obviously, I thought Roderick's idea was better, so we opened the cupboard under the sink and pulled out Dad's gun. I had never held or fired a gun before, so I let Roderick do all the work. We all agreed that it would be a really dumb idea just to charge out there and try to kill the zombie, so we came up with a plan where me and Rowley would open the door, only enough so the zombie can poke its head through. Roderick's job would be to then kill the zombie by blowing its ugly head off with the gun. It took all three of us to lift the fridge off the floor, and I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't shaking at the thought of opening that door. I looked over at Rowley, who I could tell was about to cry, and gave him a nod. We both creaked the door open. For some reason, Rowley decided to look through the gap. He began screaming as he let go of the door. Whatever was on the other side came flying at me, and I wasn't strong enough to hold it back. Even though I was completely Rowley decided to bail on me like that. A part of me didn't blame him. This thing was hideous. Roderick must have punched it really hard, and all the commotion earlier, I didn't really get a good look at it, but looking at it stumbling towards me was enough to make me sick to my stomach, and again I just froze. Roderick ran up to it and put a bullet in its head. That was enough to send it hurtling backwards and onto the ground right next to me. This time, it didn't get back up. After taking a moment to look at this thing's body, I turned to give Rowley a piece of my mind for totally bailing on me just now, and for putting my life into danger, but when I turned, he wasn't there. Me and Roger both went into a panic, thinking I had left the house, when I saw his legs poking out from the table. I asked him what he was doing, but that triggered some sort of emotional reaction from him, and he started saying how we should just leave him to die. Truth is, Greg, I'm not as strong as you, Roderick, emotionally and physically. The thought that my parents and everybody I love is dead is too much. I can't do this. I can't go on. I told him to stop being a wimp and to help me, and Roderick boarded up the windows in case more of those things come. Eventually, the promise of a box of drummies was enough to convince that fat to start helping us. Roderick quickly ran out into the garage to get some plywood and tools so we could start barricading the doors and windows of the house, just so no more of those things could get in. One thing we hadn't realized earlier though, is that the noise must have attracted some of those things, so when I looked outside, there was a horde stumbling over to our house. I quickly ran over to Roger, who then told me he had already seen it from upstairs. Apparently the horde was hundreds of zombies thick. There was no way we could possibly leave the house now. Roderick said we needed to get the windows boarded up as quickly as possible so that the house could stand a chance at resisting the zombie horde that was approaching. Roderick seemed pretty concerned about the amount of ammunition we had. He only had enough to take out a couple of those things, not nearly enough to take out the horde. As we were debating this, the zombies started to slam themselves into the wall of the house. A few windows broke, but our wooden barricade seemed to hold. For the moment, we were safe, and I think that was all we needed to rest. Tuesday. None of us could sleep last night, with those things pounding at the walls. There's more of them now. For every moment I'm awake, I'm in constant fear that one of the barricades will give way, and that those things will get in and kill me. I tried calling Mom last night, but it keeps going straight to her answering machine. I don't think they made it. Roger keeps telling me that they are fighters, and that they would have made it somewhere safe by now. Maybe a bunker where there isn't any phone reception. I doubt that, though, since yesterday they left to go to the hospital with Manny to visit Grandpa. We haven't heard much of what's happening out there, especially since the emergency broadcast had just shut off. But it seems as though the hospitals would be the worst off areas, with all the different kinds of people rushing there for help. They're gone. I know they are. Holy sh**! Just as I was writing that, I started to hear gunshots. I ran downstairs to help Roger fend off the zombies that had just broken in, but when I got there, I could see Roger looking out the window. Relax, it's just someone in the street. It turns out that one of our neighbors got surrounded by the horde and was now having one last shootout. His guts didn't stop him from being overpowered by the zombies, however, and he was torn apart. Rowley soon came over to see what was happening and suggested that we go out and help. Roger shot the idea down straight away, saying that if we go out there, we'll be torn to shreds. I didn't want to admit it, but he was right. Roger pointed out how our neighbor had dropped his gun and that we needed to retrieve it. I thought this was a terrible idea, but Roger made a good point, saying we needed another weapon and the ammunition. Rowley was also unsupportive initially, but he too eventually thought it would be beneficial to have another weapon with us. As soon as I pointed it out, however, that it would be nearly impossible to make it past the horde, Roderick said that if we make enough noise on the other end of the house, the horde will be distracted, giving enough time to run and grab the gun off the street. I would admit, it sounded like it could work, though. We need that gun. Roderick told Rowley to go to the other end of the house and start banging on the walls. He also gave me the gun and told me to cover him. I told him that he should have the gun, but he said he couldn't draw attention to himself, and that it would be better if I had it in case one of those things lunged at him. My hand shook as he passed me Dad's pistol, but I knew I had to do it. I couldn't let those things get him. Rowley went straight to the back of the house and started making a lot of noise. For a second, I thought they might realize what we were doing, come crashing through the windows. However, it seemed to work. The horde began moving. Roger told me to help him tie some bedsheets together. Then he jumped from the second-story window. I watched as he ran across the porch, dodging some stragglers, but most of the horde were all on the other side of the house. I felt Dad's pistol shake in my hand. I didn't know that I could use it. Is taking the life of these things the same as a normal person? I don't know, but I shouldn't be thinking about that right now. Just as Roderick knelt down to pick up our neighbor's gun, one of those things lunged at him, grabbing him by the arm. I quickly lifted the pistol and aimed it. I hesitated first, but seeing Roderick wrestle around that thing pushed me to do it. I fired the gun. Its head exploded. Roderick looked stunned. Roderick dropped to the floor, his attacker falling on top of him. For a second, I thought I might have hit Roderick, but I could see him begin to move. He pushed the thing off him and stared at it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what he was doing. Was he shell-shocked? Was he hurt? He soon snapped out of it. Scrambling to his feet, he turned to run. Then he looked back and picked up the gun. Luckily, he made it just in time. The horde must have heard the shot. They started pounding at the walls, harder this time. They were pissed. And they get pissed? I don't know. Roderick was covered in that thing's blood. It wasn't red, though, more like a dark brown. He didn't say anything, just turned, and with a blank stare, he left the room. Rowley was a bit shook after hearing the shot, but I comforted him, saying everything's all right. I do admit, he did a good job, and I let him know it. It's getting late. I should probably go to sleep. Maybe tomorrow will be a better day. Wednesday, the power went out. The water too. Luckily, Roderick had the foresight to fill the bathtub with several liters of water. It should last a while. Riley just so happened to have the radio on as before the power went out. It's not good news. This is an emergency broadcast. The government has collapsed. The president is dead. The virus has spread to every corner of the globe. Fatalities are thought to be in the billions. No help is coming. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear the end of the announcement as the radio wasn't battery powered. Riley seemed upset. Roderick didn't say anything. I couldn't believe what I just heard. The government collapsed? It was impossible. Yet we all heard it. I'm starting to think those things outside are our only attractive sound. It's almost as if they know we're in here. They pound at the walls, trying to break in. Alright, that is it for part 1 of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a zombie apocalypse. If you want to see part 2, comment part 2 in the comments, like, subscribe. See you in the next video. Peace.